A powerful CHAEBOL arranges a mysterious blind date for Park Min-ji, a humble housemaid struggling to pay her mother's hospital debt. But when she discovers the identity of her companion, the tears she sheds reveal a secret kept deep in her heart. The taxi pulled up in front of an imposing glass and steel building, one of Gangnam's most exclusive. Min-ji felt a knot in her stomach. The instructions she had received were vague, just an address and a time, with the promise of an opportunity that could change your life. She stepped out, her simple dress, saved for special occasions, looking even more modest under the glittering city lights. Her shoes, though clean, were no match for the polished gleam of the marble adorning the entrance. With her heart pounding, Min-ji walked through the automatic doors. The interior was subtly elegant yet overwhelming. An impeccably dressed maitre d' approached her with a polite smile. "Miss Park Min-ji?" She nodded, her voice faltering slightly. "Yes, that's me. Please follow me. Your companion is already waiting." Each step down the carpeted corridor seemed to echo the dissonance between her world and this one. She wondered who this mysterious benefactor could be. A businessman seeking a submissive wife, an older man perhaps, who amused himself with the idea of rescuing someone. Nervousness mingled with curiosity and a pang of desperation. Her mother's debt was an overwhelming burden, and any chance of relief, however strange, had to be considered. The maitre d' stopped in front of a reserved table in a more intimate corner of the restaurant, where the light was soft and the city view breathtaking. A man was seated with his back to her, gazing at the nightscape. He appeared tall, with broad shoulders beneath an impeccable dark suit. "Miss Park, your companion." The man slowly turned. Min-ji's world stopped. Lee Jin-woo. The name echoed in her mind like distant thunder. The CHAEBOL heir, the owner of the mansion where she worked, the man who, at times, had observed her with a gaze she had never been able to decipher. A gaze that seemed to see through her maid's facade, reaching the exhausted, dignified woman behind it. He stood there, a gentle, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. His eyes, which had so often met hers in silence through the mansion's corridors, now gazed at her with an intensity that was both familiar and utterly new. Words caught in Min-ji's throat. An overwhelming wave of emotions washed over her. It wasn't surprise nor pure shock. It was recognition. The recognition that that gaze, that respectful silence, had not been an illusion of her tired mind. He had seen her. He had truly seen her. Tears welled in her eyes, hot and uncontrollable, streaming down her face. They were not tears of humiliation, nor of sadness. They were tears of profound relief, of exposed vulnerability, and above all, of a newborn hope she hadn't even known she harbored. "Mr. Lee." Her voice was a choked whisper, almost inaudible. Jin-woo stepped forward, his expression soft and understanding. He didn't seem surprised by her tears. He seemed to have expected them. "Please, Min-ji," he said, his voice low and warm. "Sit down. I am your companion, and there's much I'd like to talk to you about." He extended his hand, not to touch her, but to indicate the chair opposite him. Min-ji, still in shock, felt her legs give way. The tears continued to fall, but now, among them, a small, fragile smile began to emerge. The silent guardian, the man who had seen her at her worst and most dignified, was there, offering not just an opportunity, but the promise of a love that seemed to defy all the barriers society had erected between them. Min-ji sat in the chair Jin-woo indicated, her legs still trembling. The soft fabric of the upholstery felt unreal beneath her hands. The tears didn't stop flowing, but now they were accompanied by a strange warmth in her chest, a mix of shame for her vulnerability and overwhelming gratitude. She tried to wipe them away discreetly with the palm of her hand, feeling her face hot and swollen. Jin-woo sat opposite her, his expression calm and patient. He didn't rush her, didn't judge her. He simply extended a pristine white linen handkerchief across the table. Minji picked it up, her fingers still damp, and pressed it against her eyes, trying to regain her composure. The handkerchief's soft scent was expensive but not ostentatious. I'm so sorry, Mr. Lee, she managed to say, her voice still choked. I don't know. I didn't expect. He shook his head gently. There's no need to apologize, Minji. I understand this must be a surprise. And please, just call me Jinwoo. The name coming from his lips sounded like a forbidden melody. Jinwoo, she repeated in a whisper, testing the sound. It was too intimate, too familiar for someone like her. Yes, he confirmed, a small smile appearing on his lips. I know you must have many questions, and I promise I'll answer all of them. He paused, his eyes meeting hers with disarming sincerity. But, first of all, I wanted you to know that I didn't bring you here on a whim, nor for amusement. Minji lowered her gaze, feeling a blush creep up her neck. The idea of being a plaything for a CHAEBOL was a latent fear. I've watched you, Minji, he continued, his voice soft but firm, for a long time. I've seen your dedication to your mother, your tireless work ethic, the way you treat others with kindness, even when you're treated with disdain. His words hit her like waves, each one dismantling a layer of her armor. He truly saw her, not just the maid, the invisible figure who cleaned his corridors, but the woman behind the uniform, the woman who juggled 2 jobs, who spent sleepless nights at the hospital, who swallowed humiliation to ensure their livelihood. I've seen the dignity with which you bear your burden, Jinwoo continued, his voice now a little more intense. The resilience in your eyes, even when they were tired, and I fell in love with that strength, Minji, with who you are. The air seemed to thin. Fell in love. The word hung between them, heavy and impossible. Minji felt tears return, but this time they were different. Tears of disbelief and of a hope she hadn't even known she was allowed to feel. Yes, he said, not averting his gaze. I know it sounds crazy. I know the barriers between us are immense, but I couldn't ignore what I felt, and I couldn't remain silent while you suffered any longer. Minji looked at him, at the man who represented everything she was not. Wealth, power, status. And yet, there he was, confessing feelings that transcended all of it. The promise of an opportunity that could change your life now took on a completely new meaning, far deeper than any financial aid. It wasn't just about her mother's debt. It was about her worth, about being seen and loved for who she was. But why me? She whispered, her voice still weak. I'm just a housemaid. My family is in debt. I have nothing to offer. Jinwoo extended his hand across the table, not to touch her, but to indicate the distance between them. You have everything to offer, Minji. You have a pure heart, a strong soul, and a dignity that many with far more power will never achieve. And that is what I seek. He observed her, his eyes conveying a depth that made her tremble. I know you're scared and confused, but I want you to give me a chance to show you that love knows no social classes, that it can blossom where it's least expected. Minji felt a lump in her throat. The world she knew was crumbling, and a new, frighteningly wonderful one was opening before her. The silent guardian had spoken, and his words were an invitation to a future she had never dared to dream of. The promise was not just of relief, but of a love that could heal all her wounds. And for the first time in a long time, Minji felt a pang of genuine hope, mixed with the fear of the unknown. Minji remained silent, her gaze fixed on Jinwoo's outstretched hand on the table. It wasn't an invitation for physical touch, but for a connection, for an acceptance of his words. The fear of the unknown was an abyss, but hope, however faint, was a bridge he seemed to be building for her. A chance, she murmured, her voice almost inaudible, as if speaking to herself. A chance for what, Jinwoo? Jinwoo maintained his firm yet gentle gaze. A chance for you to see that I'm not playing games. A chance for you to understand that what I feel is real. And a chance for you to allow yourself to be seen, Minji, not as the maid, not as the indebted woman, but as the extraordinary person you are. His words were both a balm and a shock. No one had ever described her as extraordinary. She was the daughter, the worker, the debtor. Those were the labels society had imposed on her and which she had accepted as her identity. I don't know what to say, she confessed, feeling small and inadequate before the grandeur of his feelings. It's too much. I can't understand. Why me? There are so many women in your world, women who share your position, your education. Jinwoo leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping a tone, becoming even more intimate. Because none of them have your soul, Minji. None of them have faced what you've faced with the same grace. I saw the way you bent to clean the floor of my house, and even in that act of humility, there was a dignity that captivated me. I saw you rush to the hospital after an exhausting day, and your love for your mother was palpable. He paused, his eyes scanning her face, as if memorizing every detail. I'm not looking for a partner who fits a predetermined social mold. I'm looking for a partner who inspires me, who challenges me, who makes me want to be a better person. And that person, Minji, is you? Minji felt her heart quicken. It was as if he were reading her innermost thoughts, unraveling the layers of her existence. The shame of her circumstances began to lessen, replaced by a strange feeling of being understood, of being valued for something she hadn't even known she possessed. But what about people? She asked, her voice laden with worry. Your family? Society? They would never accept someone like me. I would be a scandal, a disgrace to you and to the Lee name. A small smile appeared on Jinwoo's lips, a smile that held a hint of defiance. Minji, I am Lee Jinwoo. I am the heir to the Lee group. I don't ask permission to love whom I love, and as for my family, they will learn to accept it, or not. It won't change how I feel about you. The firmness in his voice was unwavering. He wasn't just confessing his love, he was declaring war against social conventions for her. The magnitude of it left her breathless. I know it's a lot to process, he continued, seeing the confusion in her eyes. I'm not asking you to give me an answer now. I'm asking you to consider, to allow yourself to think about the possibility that love can be stronger than any barrier, that you can have a different life, a life where you don't have to fight alone. He extended his hand again, this time to take hers, which rested on the table. His fingers enveloped hers with surprising delicacy, a touch that was both respectful and deeply intimate. Minji's skin tingled at the contact. I want to take care of you, Minji, he said, his voice soft as a caress. I want to alleviate your burdens. I want you to know what it is to be loved, truly loved, for who you are. Tears returned, but this time they were tears of a complex emotion, relief, fear, gratitude, and an almost painful hope. She looked at his hand holding hers, at his face, so serious and sincere. The silent guardian had revealed himself, and the promise in his eyes was of a future she had never dared to dream of. Minji's world, once so small and full of suffering, suddenly expanded to include the possibility of a grand and unexpected love. The bridge was there, and he was inviting her to cross it. She was still scared, but for the first time, the idea of taking the first step didn't seem completely impossible. Minji didn't pull her hand away. Her fingers, once damp with tears, now felt dry and cold, in contrast to the gentle warmth of Jinwoo's hand. It was a touch that didn't demand, but offered. A touch that promised protection, not possession. She felt an electric current run up her arm, reaching her heart. which beat erratically. It was a forbidden, dangerous sensation, yet strangely comforting. I don't know what this means," she managed to murmur, her voice almost a whisper, her eyes fixed on their joined hands. "I don't know how someone like me could even think of something like this." Jinwoo squeezed her hand lightly, a gesture of encouragement. "It means you're not alone, Minji. It means there's someone who sees you, who values you, and who wants to be by your side. And there's no how or why when it comes to true feelings. It just is." He paused, his eyes meeting hers again, the intensity of his gaze almost suffocating her. "I don't expect you to love me back immediately. I just ask that you allow me to show you, that you give me the chance to alleviate your burdens, to take care of your mother, to give you the life you deserve." The mention of her mother brought to light the brutal reality of her situation. The debt, the hospital, the daily struggle, all of it hung over her like a dark cloud. And here he was, offering not just an umbrella, but an entire sun. "And my mother's debt?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. "And the hospital? I can't accept charity, Jinwoo." A gentle, almost sad smile appeared on his lips. "It's not charity, Minji. It's an act of love. An act from someone who wants to see you free from worries. I've already taken care of everything. Your mother will be transferred to the best hospital and all expenses will be covered. There are no more debts." His words fell upon her like an avalanche. The debt that tormented her day and night, that made her work to exhaustion, that was the source of her humiliation, simply no longer existed. He had done it, without her asking, without her knowing. The silent guardian didn't just observe her. He acted. Minji felt a sob rise in her throat. It was too much. Relief, gratitude, shame, and a nascent, frighteningly powerful love mingled in her chest. She finally looked up at him, her eyes tear-filled, but now with a new light. "But why would you do that?" she whispered, the question deeper than any other. Jinwoo squeezed her hand once more. "Because I love you, Minji, and because you deserve peace. You deserve to be happy." Silence filled the space between them, heavy with the magnitude of the revelation and the promise. Minji looked at his hand, holding hers, at his face, so serious and sincere. The world she knew had crumbled, and a new, frighteningly wonderful one was opening before her. She felt a small but firm assent within herself. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could allow herself to dream. Minji didn't pull her hand away. The weight of years of struggle collapsed upon her, and the sensation was so overwhelming that she could barely breathe. The tears, which had ceased for a moment, returned with full force, streaming down her cheeks in hot rivers. She covered her mouth with her free hand, trying to stifle the cry that threatened to erupt. Jinwoo didn't let go. He simply squeezed her hand more firmly, his thumb gently caressing the skin of her fingers. He said nothing, just watched her, allowing her to feel the magnitude of what he had done, of what he was offering. His eyes conveyed deep understanding, infinite patience. Finally, Minji managed to control her sobs enough to speak, though her voice was hoarse and broken. "But I have nothing to offer you in return. I'm just a maid." Jinwoo tilted his head, his eyes fixed on hers, which were now red and swollen. "You don't need to offer me anything but yourself. Your dignity, your resilience, your kindness. That is more than any material wealth can buy." The gratitude was immense, the relief palpable, and the promise of such pure and selfless love was something she could no longer ignore. She didn't know what it would be like, nor what the future would bring, but for the first time in a long time, Minji felt a glimmer of hope, untainted by despair. She squeezed his hand back, a small gesture, but loaded with immense meaning. It was a silent yes to the possibility, to the chance he was offering, a yes that came from a place of exhaustion and despair, but also from a new and fragile courage. Jinwoo felt the slight squeeze, and an almost imperceptible sigh escaped his lips. His eyes, once filled with an almost painful intensity, softened with profound relief. A genuine smile, the first Minji had seen on him that wasn't tinged with sadness or contemplation, lit up his face. "Minji," he murmured, her name sounding like a melody on his lips. "Thank you." She shook her head, still unable to form coherent words. Her throat was tight, her eyes stung. How could she thank him for something so grand? How could she accept a gift that completely changed her existence? The shame of her own poverty and the magnitude of her debt, now non-existent, still tormented her. I don't know what to say," she managed to whisper, her voice choked. "I don't deserve all this. I don't." Jinwoo released her hand, only to gently lift her chin with his thumb, forcing her to look at him. His eyes were an ocean of sincerity. "Don't say that. You deserve every bit of peace and happiness. Your dignity amidst so much adversity, your strength. That's what I love about you, Minji. It's not about what you have or what you can give me. It's about who you are." His words were a balm to her wounded soul. She had always seen herself as invisible, a shadow, a tireless worker with no value beyond her utility. But he saw her. He valued her. "But people," she began, her voice failing. "What will they think? I'm a maid. You're Lee Jinwoo." The social chasm between them seemed insurmountable, even with the bridge he was building. He smiled, a smile that held a hint of defiance. "People will always talk, Minji, but what matters is what we know. What matters is the truth of our hearts. I don't care about titles or fortunes. I care about you." He paused, his eyes scanning her face, absorbing every detail. "And if you allow me, I will show everyone that love knows no barriers." Minji felt a warmth spread through her chest, a warmth that wasn't shame, but a new and strange courage. He was willing to face the world for her. He was willing to disregard everything society valued to be by her side. "My mother," she said, concern returning. You really took care of everything?" "Yes," Jinwoo confirmed, his voice firm. "She will be transferred to Seoul University Hospital tomorrow morning. The best doctors, the best treatment. And don't worry about the expenses. It's all on me. You'll be able to visit her without the anguish of debt, without the humiliation, just as a daughter who loves her mother." The reality of his words hit her with full force. Her mother, free from suffering, free from that precarious hospital. Minji imagined her mother's face, finally at peace, without the shadow of debt hanging over them. A wave of such intense gratitude washed over her that she had to close her eyes for a moment to contain it. I don't know how to thank you," she repeated, tears returning, but this time they were tears of pure hope. "You don't need to thank me," he said, his voice soft. "Just give me the chance to make you happy. Give me the chance to take care of you, to love you." He extended his hand again, this time to wipe away a tear that streamed down her cheek. The touch was delicate, reverent. Silence returned, but it was no longer a heavy silence of uncertainty. It was a silence of promise, of a future beginning to unfold. Minji looked at him, at the man who had entered her life as a silent guardian and now revealed himself as her savior and her love. I accept," she said, her voice still weak but with a new resolve. "I accept your chance, Jinwoo." A radiant smile spread across his face, and for an instant the weight of the world seemed to disappear. He leaned in slightly, and Minji felt her heart race. It wasn't a kiss, not yet. It was a gaze, a deep connection that transcended words. "Then, Minji," he said, his voice husky with emotion, "let's begin. Let's build something together." He stood up, still holding her hand, and gently pulled her to her feet. The restaurant, once a setting for her anguish, now seemed the stage for a new beginning. She was scared, yes, but for the first time, hope was stronger than fear. She was ready to cross the bridge. She was ready to dream. Jinwoo, with a smile that lit up his entire face, gently pulled her to her feet. Minji felt her legs a little wobbly, as if the ground beneath her had shifted. The restaurant, once a stage of humiliation and despair, now seemed like a setting for a miracle. The lights, the distant hum of other customers, everything seemed unreal, as if she were floating in a dream. "Let's go," he said, his voice a gentle but firm whisper. He didn't let go, keeping her hand secure in his as he guided her out of the dining room. Minji barely registered the way, her eyes fixed on his hand, then on his face, trying to imprint every detail of the man who had turned her world upside down. The cold Seoul night air hit her with a soft shock, but not even the chilly wind could dissipate the warmth spreading through her chest. Outside, an elegant black car, which she recognized as the same one that had brought her, waited. A driver opened the rear door, and Jinwoo ushered her inside, ensuring she was comfortable before sitting beside her. The luxurious interior of the vehicle, with its soft leather scent and muffled silence, was a world apart from her daily reality. "Are you all right?" Jinwoo asked, his voice full of concern as the car glided smoothly through the illuminated streets. Minji shook her head, unable to articulate a response. She was still processing everything, the debt, her mother, his love. It was as if a dam had broken inside her, and emotions flooded her. "I know it's a lot to take in," he continued, his thumb caressing the back of her hand. "But I want you to know there's no rush, no expectations. Just my promise that I'll be here for you, every step of the way." The mention of her mother brought back the most urgent reality. "My mother. Are you sure? About the hospital?" she whispered, her voice still fragile. Jinwoo squeezed her hand. "Absolutely. I've already spoken with the staff at Seoul University Hospital. They're expecting her transfer tomorrow morning. The best specialist will be taking care of her, Minji, and all expenses, from transport to treatment and recovery, are covered. You don't need to worry about anything." His words were a balm. The image of her mother, suffering in a precarious hospital bed, was replaced by one of comfort and care. A solitary tear streamed down Minji's face, but this time it was a tear of pure relief. And my job?" she asked, her voice almost inaudible. The daily humiliation, the exhausting hours, the constant reminder of her social position. Jinwoo looked at her with infinite tenderness. "Minji, you don't have to work there anymore. You don't have to face that humiliation anymore. I don't want you to go through that for another day." She felt a lump in her throat, leaving the job. That job that was her only source of income, that defined her existence. It was liberating, but also terrifying. Who would she be without it? "But I can't just quit," she argued, a pang of panic in her voice. I've always worked. It's who I am." "It's who you were forced to be," Jinwoo gently corrected, "but it's not who you are. You are a strong, dignified, kind woman. You deserve more than exhaustion and humiliation. I want you to have the freedom to choose what to do, to discover what truly makes you happy." He paused, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror, which reflected the night city. "I know it's a huge change, Minji, and I know it can be scary, but I'll be by your side, to support you, to guide you, to love you." Minji looked at the urban landscape passing by the window, the lights shining like stars on earth. The life she knew was unraveling, and a new one was forming before her eyes. She still felt the fear of the unknown, the weight of social expectations, but Jinwoo's hand in hers, the promise in his eyes, was a beacon. I'll try, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I'll try to believe. A soft, warm smile appeared on Jinwoo's lips. That's all I ask. Just give me the chance to show you. The car stopped smoothly in front of Minji's modest apartment building. The contrast with the car's luxury was stark, but Jinwoo didn't seem to notice. He got out and opened the door for her, extending his hand. Rest, Minji, he said, his eyes conveying a silent promise. Tomorrow will be a new day, a new beginning. Minji nodded, still in a state of stupor. She climbed the steps of her building, feeling his gaze on her back until she was inside. The apartment looked the same, but she was no longer the same. The weight of the debt was gone, the humiliation seemed distant, and the promise of a true love hung in the air. Minji closed the door to her small apartment, and the click echoed in the silence that followed. The familiar smell of mold and cheap food, which before had just been part of the scenery, now seemed a vestige of a life she was about to leave behind. She leaned against the door, her legs still trembling slightly, and slid to the cold floor. The luxury of Jinwoo's car, the promise in his eyes, the warmth of his hand. Everything felt like a vivid yet unreal dream. Her gaze swept over the modest apartment, the worn furniture, the faded photos of her mother in a small frame on the table. It was her refuge, the only place where she could be herself, away from the judging eyes and demands of her employers. But it was also a prison, a constant reminder of her poverty and her responsibilities. I'm not the same anymore, she whispered into the emptiness. Her voice choked. Jinwoo's phrase, "It's who you were forced to be, but it's not who you are," resonated in her mind. He saw her in a way no one else ever had. He saw the woman behind the maid, the soul behind the debt. A wave of panic hit her. Leave her job? The job that was her identity, her only source of security, however precarious. How would she live? What would she do? The freedom he offered was intoxicating, but also terrifying. She had always known her place, always known what was expected of her. Now the ground beneath her feet had disappeared, and she was floating in a sea of unknown possibilities. But then the image of her mother came to mind, not the emaciated mother in the precarious hospital, but the mother Jinwoo promised. In a comfortable bed at Seoul University Hospital, receiving the best treatment, free from the anguish of debt. This image was a beacon, an anchor amidst the storm of her emotions. For her mother, she would do anything. For her mother, she would accept this chance. She stood up, her hands trembling as she picked up her phone. There were no messages. He had promised a new beginning, but he wouldn't suffocate her with his presence. He was respectful, as he always had been. Minji felt a pang of anxiety, but also admiration. He was different from any man she had ever known. She went to the window, watching the city lights. Seoul, a metropolis of dreams and opportunities for some, and of struggles and sacrifices for others. She had always been in the latter group, but now perhaps she could dare to dream of the former. Tomorrow will be a new day, Jinwoo had said, and she knew it would be. Tomorrow, her mother would be transferred. Tomorrow, she wouldn't have to wake up to another day of humiliation. Tomorrow, she would have to face the world not as Park Minji, the housemaid, but as Park Minji, the woman Lee Jinwoo chose to love. Fear was still there, a knot in her stomach, but hope was a flame that refused to be extinguished. She allowed herself to feel the warmth of that flame, the warmth of the promise, the warmth of love. It was a love that defied conventions, that ignored social barriers, that saw dignity where others saw only status. Minji took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She didn't know what the future held for them, nor how she would face society's stares and whispers. But she had Jinwoo, and for the first time in her life, she felt she wasn't alone. She had someone who believed in her, who valued her, who was willing to fight for her. She went to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. Her mind was in a whirl, reliving every word, every look, every touch of that night, and perhaps to love him back with all the strength of her heart. The new chapter of her life had begun. The morning sun peeked through Minji's thin apartment curtains, but it wasn't the light that woke her. It was the absence of the shrill alarm that tore her from sleep before dawn, the absence of the anxiety that tightened her chest at the thought of the day's chores. She opened her eyes slowly, and for a moment the world seemed normal. Then the memories of the previous night hit her like a wave. Jin Woo, the promise, the debt, her mother. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. It was real. Everything was real. She didn't have to go to work. The feeling was strange, almost guilty. For years, her life had been defined by work, by struggle. Now, there was an emptiness, a space that needed to be filled. Her phone vibrated on the bedside table. It was a message from an unknown number. "Good morning, Minji. A car will be at your door in an hour to take you to your mother's hospital. I will be there to meet you both. Jin Woo." A trembling smile appeared on her lips. He was punctual, efficient, and above all thoughtful. There was no demand, just a gentle reminder. She got up, feeling renewed energy, but still mixed with a pang of nervousness. In the old hospital, the smell of antiseptic and despair seemed stronger than ever. Minji approached her mother's bedside, who was pale and weak, but with a glimmer of curiosity in her eyes. "Mom, good morning," Minji said, taking her wrinkled hand. "I have wonderful news." Minji's mother, Park Soonja, looked at her daughter with a confused expression. "News? What happened, dear? Are you all right?" "I'm great, Mom. Better than ever. You're being transferred today to Seoul University Hospital. And it's all paid for." Soonja took a moment to process the words. University Hospital. But how? And the money? Minji felt tears in her eyes, but this time they were of pure joy. "An angel helped us, Mom. A very good man. He saw our struggle and wanted to help us." She couldn't tell her everything yet. Not like this. Her mother needed peace, not more shock. A nurse entered with a warm smile. "Mrs. Park Soonja, we're ready for your transfer. A luxury ambulance is waiting downstairs." Soonja looked from the nurse to Minji, her eyes teary. "Is it true, Minji? Am I not dreaming?" "It's the absolute truth, Mom," Minji whispered, squeezing her hand. "A new beginning for both of us." The ambulance ride was smooth. Minji held her mother's hand, watching the urban landscape pass by. Seoul University Hospital was imposing, modern, a world apart from the place where her mother had been languishing. Upon their arrival, Jin Woo was there, waiting at the entrance, impeccably dressed, his gaze fixed on them. He approached with a gentle smile. "Mrs. Park, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Lee Jin-woo." Soonja, still a little dazed, tried to make a weak bow from the ambulance bed. "Oh, my goodness. Are you the benefactor? Thank you so much. Thank you for everything." Jin-woo nodded. "You're welcome. Minji is an extraordinary woman, and your health is our priority now." He looked at Minji, his eyes conveying a silent message of support and love. Minji felt her heart warm. His presence was a balm. He was not just a benefactor, but a pillar. Her mother was taken to a private room, spacious and bright, with a view of a garden. The doctors and nurses were attentive, explaining each step of the treatment. Soonja was in shock, but a shock of relief and gratitude. "Minji," her mother whispered after the doctors left. "Who is this man? He's an angel." Minji smiled, tears streaming freely. "He is, Mom. He is." She couldn't explain the depth of her feelings yet, but the truth was there. In her eyes, Jinwoo stood a little apart, giving them space, but his gaze never left Minji. When she turned to him, he approached. "She'll be fine here, Minji. The best are taking care of her." "I know," she said, her voice choked. I don't know how to thank you." He held her hand, a soft, comforting gesture. "You don't need to thank me. Just give me the chance to love you, Minji, and to take care of you and your mother." Minji looked at her mother, who already seemed more relaxed in the new environment. The weight of years of suffering and debt had been lifted in a single day. Fear still whispered in her mind about the uncertain future, about society's expectations, about the magnitude of the change. But beside Jinwoo, looking at her mother in peace, she knew she had made the right choice. She was ready to face anything as long as she had him by her side. The new day had truly dawned, and with it, the promise of a life she never dared to dream of. Minji felt the warmth of Jinwoo's hand in hers, a soft contrast to the coolness of the hospital corridor's marble. His words, "Just give me the chance to love you, Minji, and to take care of you and your mother," echoed in her mind, a sound as sweet as the melody of a dream. She looked at him, her eyes tear-filled, but now without the anguish of before, just overwhelming gratitude and happy confusion. "Jinwoo," she began, her voice choked. I don't know what to say. It's all so fast, so grand." He squeezed her hand gently. "I know, and I don't expect you to have all the answers now. Just that you trust me, that you allow me to show you what it's like to have someone by your side, someone who values you for who you are." Minji averted her gaze to her mother's room door, where Sunja finally rested in peace. The image of that luxurious room, of her mother's serene face, was living proof of Jinwoo's promise. How could she doubt? How could she refuse? "I trust you," she whispered, turning back to face him. "I trust you, but I'm just a housemaid, Jinwoo. I have nothing to offer." A tender smile appeared on his lips, and he used his thumb to wipe away a solitary tear that streamed down her face. "Minji, you have everything to offer. You have a strength that few possess, a dignity that captivated me from the first moment. You have a pure heart and a resilient soul that is more than any material fortune." He paused, his gaze intense. "Don't worry about what you have or don't have. Just worry about being yourself and about allowing me to be by your side." The honesty in his eyes was undeniable. Minji felt a knot in her throat unravel. Fear was still there, a distant shadow, but the light of Jinwoo's hope and love was much brighter. I want to try," she finally said, her voice a little firmer. "I want to try to build something with you." Jinwoo's smile deepened, and he gently pulled her into a hug. It wasn't a passionate embrace, but one of comfort, of promise, of a safe harbor. Minji allowed herself to relax in his arms, feeling the warmth and security she had never known she needed. "Let's get out of here for a moment," he suggested, pulling back slightly. "Your mother is in good hands. We need to talk, Minji, about what comes next." They left the hospital, and Jinwoo led her to a discreet but elegant cafe a few blocks away. The atmosphere was quiet, with soft music and the aroma of fresh coffee. Minji felt a little out of place, but Jinwoo's presence beside her was a shield. "First about you," he began, after they sat down and ordered tea. "You don't have to worry about work anymore. Your priority now is your mother and, well, us." Minji nodded. The idea of not having to return to her former employer's house was an immense relief, but also an abyss. "I don't know what to do with all this free time," she admitted, a small, ironic smile. "My life has always been defined by work. And now it will be defined by your choices," Jinwoo replied, taking her hand across the table. "You can do whatever you want, Minji. Do you want to study, travel, Find a new purpose. I'll be here to support you every step of the way." She looked at the steaming teacup, his words filling her with a dizzying array of possibilities. I never thought I'd have this freedom. It's scary." "It's liberating," he corrected, his eyes fixed on hers. "And I'll be with you to face any fear. There's nothing we can't overcome together." Minji felt a wave of emotion. He wasn't just offering money or security. He was offering partnership, respect, and a future where she could finally flourish. "And about us?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. How will this work? People." Jinwoo sighed softly. "People will always have something to say, Minji, especially when they see something that challenges their expectations. But what matters is what we feel, what we build. I don't care about social status, about what others think. I care about you." He squeezed her hand again. "I know it won't be easy. There will be challenges, but I'm ready to face them with you. Are you ready to face the world by my side?" Minji took a deep breath, looking at the man in front of her. He was everything she had never dared to dream of and more. He saw her, truly saw her, and he was willing to fight for her. "Yes," she said, her voice firm and clear. "I am ready. I am ready to face the world by your side, Jinwoo." A new chapter had begun, not just with the promise of a future, but with the courage to embrace it, hand in hand, against all odds. Fear was still a shadow, but the flame of Jinwoo's hope and love was now an uncontrollable fire in her heart. She was ready to burn. Minji's declaration hung in the air, charged with the strength of a lifetime of sacrifices and the courage of a new beginning. Jinwoo watched her, his dark eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and deep admiration. The smile that formed on his lips was not just of happiness, but of a silent promise, an oath. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his, a gesture that was both protective and affectionate. "That's the only answer I needed, Minji," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "The world out there, it can be cruel to those who dare to love outside the lines they draw. But with you by my side, I feel like I can face anything." Minji felt a warmth spread through her chest, dissolving the last remnant of doubt. This man wasn't just offering an escape from her problems. He was offering a partner, a confidant, a love that saw beyond appearances. "I feel that too, Jinwoo," she confessed, squeezing his hand. "It's as if my whole life had been preparation for this moment, to find you." They remained there for a while, their hands clasped on the cafe table. The silence filled with the promise of a future that, until a few hours ago, was unimaginable. The tea grew cold, but neither of them noticed. There was a new energy between them, an electric current of hope and determination. "Let's go back to the hospital," Jinwoo suggested, finally breaking the spell. "Your mother must be wondering where you are, and there are other things we need to arrange." Upon their return, the atmosphere in Sunja's room was one of calm and recovery. Minji's mother was sleeping, a deep and peaceful sleep that Minji hadn't seen in years. The sight filled her with immense gratitude, a constant reminder of what Jinwoo had done for them. "She looks so peaceful," Minji whispered, watching her mother through the glass door. "She is," Jinwoo confirmed, placing his hand gently on Minji's back. The doctors said that stress and worry were major factors in her condition. Now that has been removed, recovery will be faster. They moved away slightly to talk privately. "Minji," Jinwoo began, his voice serious, "we need to think about where you'll stay. You can't go back to your former employer's house." Minji nodded. The idea of returning to that place of humiliation was unthinkable. "I know. I haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I can rent a small apartment near the hospital to be close to Mom." Jinwoo shook his head gently. "No. I have an apartment that I rarely use. It's discreet and comfortable. It's in a quiet neighborhood, not too far from here. You can stay there as long as you need. It's safe, and you'll have privacy." Minji hesitated. The offer was generous, but the idea of accepting more of his kindness made her uncomfortable. "Jinwoo, I can't. I don't want to be a burden." He interrupted her, his eyes firm. "You will never be a burden, Minji. Think of it as the first step in building our life together, a place where you can feel safe and free to be yourself, without the pressures of the past. It's not a favor, it's a beginning." The sincerity in his words was undeniable. Minji felt the barriers she had built over the years begin to completely crumble. He wasn't just offering a roof, he was offering a home, a refuge. "All right," she agreed, a small smile appearing. "Thank you, Jinwoo, for everything." He smiled back, a smile that lit up his eyes. "You're welcome. Now, let's sort out the details, and then we can start dreaming about what comes next." While Jinwoo made some calls and arranged transportation to the apartment, Minji watched her mother. Life had changed in the blink of an eye. From an existence of despair and servitude, she was being catapulted into a world of possibilities and love. She was ready to burn, ready to live, ready to love, and for the first time in a long time, she felt she wasn't alone, she was with him, and that was all that mattered. Jinwoo finished the last call, putting his phone back in his pocket with a satisfied air. "Everything is ready. A car is waiting for us downstairs." He turned to Minji, who was still watching her sleeping mother, a veil of emotion in her eyes. I wanted to stay a little longer," she whispered without looking away. "It's strange. For so long, all I wanted was for her to be well. Now that she is, I feel an emptiness, as if a part of my struggle has ended, and I don't know what to do with the silence." Jinwoo approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's natural, Minji. You carried an enormous weight for a long time. Now is the time to allow yourself to rest, to allow yourself to be cared for. Your mother will be here, and you can visit her whenever you want. But for now, you need a place to breathe, to process everything." Minji nodded slowly, finally turning to face him. There was deep gratitude in her gaze, mixed with a hint of apprehension. "I've never had a place of my own. Not really. It was always a borrowed room, a corner in someone's house. This will be your sanctuary," Jinwoo promised, his thumb gently caressing her arm. "A place where you can be Minji, without judgment, without expectations, just you." They descended to the hospital exit, where a dark, elegant car awaited them. Minji felt the curious glances of some staff, but Jinwoo's presence by her side was an invisible shield. As she got into the car, the discreet luxury of the interior enveloped her, a stark contrast to the crowded buses and subways that were her daily reality. The journey was silent, but not uncomfortable. Minji watched the city lights pass by, her mind racing in 1,000 directions. Her former employer's house, the humiliation, the overwhelming debt, all now seemed like a distant nightmare. But the reality of her new situation, though wonderful, was equally overwhelming. The car stopped in front of a modern, elegant building in a leafy, quiet neighborhood. Jinwoo guided her to an apartment on an upper floor. As he opened the door, Minji held her breath. The space was bright, with large windows offering a panoramic view of the city. The decor was minimalist but sophisticated, with neutral tones and touches of modern art. It wasn't ostentatious, but it exuded comfort and good taste. It's beautiful," she whispered. Her voice choked. She walked to the window, feeling the immensity of the view. Never in her life had she imagined seeing the city from such an elevated perspective. It was as if, suddenly, the world had opened up to her. Jinwoo watched her, a soft smile on his lips. "It's yours for now. Make yourself at home, Minji. There's food in the fridge and everything you need. I'll be nearby. but I want you to have your space, your privacy." She turned, her eyes tear-filled. How can I ever repay all this, Jinwoo?" He approached, taking her hands. "You're already repaying me, Minji, by allowing me to be by your side, by giving me the chance to love you. That's more than any material thing could buy." His eyes met hers, intense and full of an unwavering promise. "This is just the beginning of a new chapter for us. And I can't wait to write it with you." Minji felt the flame in her heart, the one Jinwoo had ignited, burn brighter. It was a flame of hope, of love, and of newly discovered courage. She was ready to burn, to live, to love. She was with him. Jinwoo squeezed her hands one last time, a look of tender understanding in his eyes. "I need to go now, Minji. I have some meetings I can't postpone, but I'll call you later. Please, rest, and don't hesitate to call me if you need anything at any time." Minji nodded, still a little dazed by the grandeur of the moment. "Thank you, Jinwoo, for everything." He smiled, a smile that promised more than words could express, and then turned to the door. "See you soon, Minji." The door closed softly, and the echo of the final click resonated in the silence of the apartment. Minji stood there, in the middle of the living room, the vastness of the space and the quiet that filled it seeming almost oppressive. It was the first time in years that she was completely alone, without the constant presence of her former employers, without the city noise invading her small room, without the suffocating worry about her mother. She walked slowly to the window again, the panoramic city view stretching before her like a carpet of lights and shadows. It was a view of a world she had always observed from below, a world that seemed unattainable. Now she was in it, or at least on its edge. A deep sigh escaped her lips. The reality of her new situation was as overwhelming as the misery of her previous life. She touched the cool surface of the glass, feeling the solidity of the apartment, the security it offered. It wasn't a maid's room, it wasn't a cramped corner. It was a home that Jinwoo had provided. Memories of the past few days flooded her. The humiliation at the Park's house, the cruel words, the despair of seeing her mother sick and without resources. And then Jinwoo's appearance, like a guardian angel, a ray of sunshine in her darkness. He had seen her dignity, her strength, and loved her for it. "How did this happen?" she whispered into the emptiness, her voice almost inaudible. It was as if she had been ripped from a nightmare and thrown into a dream. And the transition was so abrupt that her mind could barely keep up. She explored the apartment, each room a testament to Jinwoo's good taste and consideration. The modern kitchen, the bedroom with a huge, soft bed, the luxurious bathroom with a bathtub that seemed an invitation to relaxation. In every detail, she saw his care, his intention to provide her not just a roof, but comfort and peace. Entering the bedroom, she sat on the edge of the bed, sinking into the soft mattress. It was a stark contrast to the thin mat she used to sleep on the floor of the service room. Tears, which she had held back for so long, began to stream silently down her face. They were not tears of sadness, but of relief, of gratitude, and of an emotion so profound she couldn't name it. It was the feeling of being seen, of being valued, of being loved by someone who saw beyond her circumstances. She picked up the phone, which Jinwoo had given her, and dialed the hospital number. She needed to hear her mother's voice, to be sure that all of this wasn't a dream. The nurse confirmed that Soonja was sleeping peacefully, her recovery progressing well. The news brought new relief, a weight lifted from her heart. Minji hung up, feeling the exhaustion of the past few days finally catch up to her. She lay down on the bed, sinking into the soft sheets. The scent of cleanliness and freshness enveloped her. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the need to be alert, to prepare for the next challenge. Fear was still a shadow, yes, The world out there, as Jinwoo had said, could be cruel, but lying there in the safety and comfort he had provided, Minji felt the flame of Jinwoo's hope and love burn stronger. She was with him. This was her new beginning, and she was ready for it. Minji remained lying down, her eyes closed, but her mind was more awake than ever. The silence of the apartment was a balm, a stark contrast to the constant hum of her previous life. There was no sound of the park's television, no creak of the service room door, no echo of incessant demands in her mind. Only quiet, punctuated by the soft whir of the air conditioning and the distant murmur of the city outside, a sound that now seemed inviting, not threatening. She took a deep breath, smelling the fresh scent of the sheets, and a profound peace began to settle in her chest. It was a new, almost strange sensation, as if a heavy armor she had worn for years had finally been removed. The humiliation, the exhaustion, the constant struggle for survival, all of it now seemed to belong to a past life, to a different Minji. The image of Jinwoo appeared in her mind, his gentle gaze, his firm words, the way he held her hands. He didn't see her as a maid, he didn't see her as a debtor, he saw her as Minji, the woman he had observed, the woman whose inner strength had captivated him. The memory of the blind date, of that moment when their eyes met and she recognized the silent guardian, still made her tremble. It was the turning point, the moment when despair gave way to hope. How can someone be so good? She thought, a solitary tear escaping the corner of her eye and disappearing into the soft pillow. It wasn't a tear of sadness, but of a gratitude so overwhelming it barely fit in her heart. He didn't just save her, he saw her. He valued her. He loved her. She opened her eyes, staring at the high, immaculate ceiling. This apartment wasn't just a roof. It was a sanctuary, a place where she could rebuild herself, where she could heal the invisible wounds she carried. Jinwoo didn't just give her a place to live. He gave her the chance to be. The future, which before was a dense fog of uncertainties and fears, now stretched out like an illuminated path. Not that everything would be easy. She knew that social differences, the world's expectations, would still be challenges. But for the first time, she didn't feel alone in facing them. She had Jinwoo, and he had proven that his love was strong enough to transcend any barrier. She turned on her side, hugging the pillow, feeling the warmth of the body that had just rested there. It was as if a part of Jinwoo was still present, a silent promise of his return. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes and made them sparkle. She imagined the days to come, visits to her mother, now without the anguish of debt, conversations with Jinwoo, learning more about him, about his world, the discovery of who Minji could be now that she was free to flourish. Perhaps she could study again. Perhaps she could find a purpose that wasn't just about surviving. The possibilities were endless, and for the first time, she was excited to explore them. Fear still existed, yes, a persistent shadow in the back of her mind. But now, the flame of Jinwoo's hope and love was an uncontrollable fire, consuming the darkness. She was ready to burn, to live every moment with intensity, to love with all her being. Minji closed her eyes again, feeling sleep finally embrace her. It wasn't a sleep of escape, but of surrender. Surrender to peace, to security, to love. She was no longer alone. She was with him. And that, she knew, was all that mattered. This was her new beginning, and she was ready to write it page by page, alongside Lee Jinwoo.